prayers and leading a short kirtan. And then I will read from my forthcoming book about traveling with Srila Prabhupada in India, about his visit to Indore for the Gita Jayanti celebrations. Vandeham Shri Guru Srila Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavangscha Shri Rupa Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Stam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sagana Lalita Shri Liveiskconpune Namah Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktavinda. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktavinda. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Pariprajakacharya Stotra Satasi Srimad Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Pariprajakacharya Stotra Satasi Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Ho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. Jamuna Mai Ki Jai, Ganga Mai Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Samveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Reading from Traveling with Srila Prabhupada in India, Chapter 4, Indore, December 3rd to 15th, 1971. And I chose this because we recently celebrated Gita Jayanti and we are in the Gita Marathon. So, after a month in Bombay, Srila Prabhupada proceeded to Indore by invitation of the Gita Bhavan for the Gita Jayanti Mahotsav, the celebration of Lord Krishna speaking the Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna. And on December 8th, at his request, our group, who was in Delhi, minus Guru Das, who is working on getting customs clearance for Prabhupada's books, joined him. The organizers had assigned Prabhupada a cottage with a lawn and garden and housed the rest of us nearby. After settling into our quarters, we toured the festival site's large pandal and stage, the Gita Bhavan Eye Hospital, and an extensive diorama exhibit with an eclectic mix of spiritual paths. It was kind of like a pseudo-spiritual museum, and we were impressed by the energy and imagination that had gone into the center, but dubious about the legitimacy of it all. Krishna, Buddha, Jesus, Vivekananda, Ramakrishna, as well as demigods and even animals were on display, which Srila Prabhupada referred to dismissively as hodgepodge. Where in the Bhagavad Gita does it say that you should open an eye hospital? He asked. But if I tell them that, they will feel offended. Later, when we entered Prabhupada's Darshan room, he looked up from his desk. Srila Prabhupada, Yamuna Devi remarked, "You look just like a picture I have seen of your Guru Mahraj looking up from his desk." "All that glitters is not gold," Prabhupada replied. "My Guru Maharaj was like gold. I am like iron." Of course, we knew that he was pure gold, just like his Guru Maharaj. How Srila Prabhupada dealt with us each individually was the greatest gift, Yamuna recalled. He treated everyone on a personal basis and encouraged us in our practice of Krishna consciousness. I felt that he genuinely loved each of us, and he exhibited that love through how he took care of us, with great concern, compassion, and correction when required. He personally took me to my room, which contained a small bed and a metal almirah. Then he took out a small key, opened the almirah, and said, "Here is space for your belongings. Is this all right?" I was thinking, here I am, an insignificant person in his party, yet he is showing so much concern for my welfare. And that same concern and kindness he showed me, he showed to everyone in the party by taking into account our natures, our characters, our individuality. Srila Prabhupada was scheduled as the last speaker of the first night of the festival, so we all had to sit on stage for hours. By the way, this is me speaking. We finished Yamuna Devi's recollection. Srila Prabhupada was scheduled as the last speaker of the first night of the festival, so we all had to sit on stage for hours, listening to an assortment of sadhus and swamis give a series of long lectures in Hindi on Mayavad misconceptions. He sat with us and waited, chanting japa. When it was finally his turn to speak, he described how he was spreading the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita in the West. The Gita, he said, was for devotees of Krishna and should not be misinterpreted, which would be cheating in the name of religion. At the end of his talk, he asked us to have kirtan, and when he joined us in dance on stage, the crowd came to life and began clapping rhythmically. Hansaduta jumped down into the crowd, still playing mridanga. Then other devotees joined him, and soon hundreds of people rose to their feet and joined the kirtan and dancing. The next day, pleased by the performance, the Pandal directors visited Srila Prabhupada and his quarters. Srila Prabhupada complained about having to wait so long to speak, and his disciples having to sit through hours of speeches that deviated from the teachings of the Gita in a language they couldn't understand. But the director replied, "We do not favor any particular way. Followers of the Shankara school and others also come to our institution. We do not subscribe wholly that Sri Krishna is the sole God or anything of the sort. There is a power behind him." This remark drew fire from Srila Prabhupada. What kind of glorification of the Gita did not accept Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the highest truth, Mata Parataram Nanyat? When the men had left, Prabhupada continued, "They are thinking that there is something beyond Krishna, or that it is the spirit within Krishna that we have to surrender to. But they do not know that with the within and the without of Krishna are all absolute, eternal, and full of bliss." As an Amritsar, he could see that the festival organizers had invited him to draw larger crowds, but they would not make him sit through all the Mayavadi nonsense again. From then on, he said he would go with his disciples, speak, chant, and then leave. The next night, however, despite promises by the Pandal directors, Prabhupada again had to wait until the end of the program before he could speak and hold kirtan. The crowd was larger than before, and they were clearly waiting for him and his foreign sadhus. When his turn came at last, he spoke and then asked us to begin kirtan. Again, the crowd responded enthusiastically. But during the kirtan, one of the members of the Gita Bhavan gestured to the devotees to jump down into the crowd as they had done the previous night. But what the devotees had done spontaneously could not be staged as a crowd pleaser. The man, however, was insistent. He came forward to the edge of the stage, reached up, and began grabbing at the feet of the dancing devotees, trying to pull them into the audience. Grabbing indiscriminately, he pulled at one of the woman's saris. Srila Prabhupada was also dancing, but when he saw what was happening, he rushed to the edge of the stage and swung his kartals towards the man's face and shouted, "Stop this!" The man retreated, and Prabhupada and the rest of us continued our kirtan. Although little noticed by the crowd, Prabhupada's burst of lion-like ferocity impressed and inspired us, his disciples. One evening, Vairagi Baba, an educated follower of Lord Chaitanya who had visited America and spoke fluent English and had participated in one of our programs in Bombay, joined Srila Prabhupada and the devotees on the stage. And Prabhupada got up from the Vyasasana and came right in front of him and began to jump up and down in an effort to encourage him also to jump up and down and dance. And there were the two of them jumping up and down and dancing before thousands of people. The festival directors were again pleased with Prabhupada's lecture and kirtan, but he sent them word that he would no longer sit through the other speakers waiting for his turn. He had wearied of hearing opinions on the Bhagavad Gita that avoided its conclusion, surrender to Krishna, the absolute truth. Some speakers made the Gita an allegory. Some said that Krishna was not an actual historical personality. Some took advantage of the Gita's popularity to put forward their own political or social philosophies. A person with his own philosophy should write his own book, Prabhupada said, not use as a vehicle for his ideas the Bhagavad Gita, a scripture worshipped by millions and respected throughout the world. Why should a conference under the name Gita Jayanti become a forum for speculative philosophies? The Bhagavad Gita itself stated that it was the essence of knowledge meant to benefit the entire world. To misinterpret the Gita, therefore, was the greatest disservice. And Prabhupada felt that by sitting through such a program, he and his disciples were tacitly approving the blasphemous speeches. On the third night of the festival, Prabhupada came with us early, having been promised that he would be first on the program. But when another speaker stood and began his discourse, Prabhupada, followed by the rest of us, stood and walked off the stage. The festival director was quite disturbed by this, since most of the audience had come especially for the kirtan, and he pleaded with Prabhupada to return, but Prabhupada refused, though he agreed to send his disciples in his stead. We would speak and hold kirtan. Thereafter, Prabhupada stayed back at his cottage during the evening programs, and Hansaduta and sometimes Himavati spoke. But as before, we had to sit on the stage for hours and listen to the Mayavadis spout nonsense, while the audience was eagerly waiting for our kirtan. We repeatedly asked the organizers to tell us exactly what time we would perform, and every day we were given a time and we came, but every evening the Mayavadis went on and on, well past the time we were supposed to begin. Finally, Hansaduta told the organizers, "If you make us wait like this anymore, we are not going to come." The following night, however, we again had to wait, so we didn't attend the next program. Once more, the organizers were upset. Everyone in the audience had been waiting for us, so they came to Prabhupada's cottage in a group to complain. Prabhupada replied, "Why should I make them sit through some Mayavadi speaking nonsense in Hindi, which they don't even understand?" And that pretty much silenced the organizers. One of the Mayavadi sannyasis, who went by the name Muktananda Swami, joined our movement. We were impressed by his change of heart, considering it to be like Prakashananda Saraswati and all of his followers' conversion to by Lord Chaitanya to Vaishnavism. We never had a Mayavadi sannyasi join us, so we asked Srila Prabhupada what his position would be. Prabhupada said that Muktananda should give up his sannyas garments and dress and live like a brahmachari. Eventually, Muktananda went through the standard procedure of getting first and then getting second initiation. Prabhupada was pleased that he had joined and would sometimes address remarks to him for encouragement. When we were not engaged in attending programs or giving talks at the Pandal, Srila Prabhupada would send Hansaduta out to make life members. One day, a palmist came to Srila Prabhupada's cottage and wanted to read our palms. We turned to Prabhupada, and he said it was all right. So the palm reader looked at each of our hands and made predictions. This one would become a great devotee. This one would go back to Godhead in this life. This one would fall away. This one wouldn't make it in this life, but would have to come back and try again. After the palmist left, we again looked to Prabhupada for guidance as to what to make of the whole thing. He said, "As soon as you clap your hands 3 times in front of the deities during Arti, all the lines are wiped off." Thus he dismissed the palmist's predictions. Another time, we were invited to an admirer's house for lunch, and Vairagi Baba was also there. But we noticed that after the meal, he was drinking tea. So, in a casual way, but with an element of challenge, I asked him why. He said, "Oh, I am Avaduta." I had never heard the word before. So I told Srila Prabhupada what had happened and asked him what it meant. Prabhupada smiled and said, "Avaduta means one who is above the regulative principles. Generally, this refers to Nityananda Prabhu, and he indicated his disapproval of Vairagi Baba's both drinking tea and referring to himself in such a manner. Indore was the first place where I felt that Srila Prabhupada had things to say that he did not always express openly. Many people asked him about Ramakrishna and Vivekananda, for instance, wanting his approval. But he did not directly tell them what he thought. When one man who came to see him asked, "What do you think of Swami Vivekananda?" he replied, "He is not standard," and explained that the standard authorities were Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Vedic literature such as the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. By saying that Swami Vivekananda was not standard, he implied that Swami Vivekananda was not an authority at all, but he did not say it directly. He never compromised on the philosophy, however, and one by one, the Ramakrishna and Vivekananda followers went away disappointed us. He instructed us that when people ask, "What about such and such Swami?" we should reply, "Swami who?" By indicating that we didn't know who the Swami was, we would implicitly be minimizing the Swami's importance. Then we should ask, "What does he say?" And then we could comment on the philosophy without attacking the Swami as an individual. Generally, Srila Prabhupada would ask people who wanted to meet him to come to his cottage. But when the request came from an especially prominent party, he would go to their place. So on December 11th, we went with him to Lal Bagh Palace to meet His Highness Mahraj Tukoji Rao Holkar and Maharani Sarmishta Bai Holkar, the King and Queen of Indore. Upon our arrival, we were seated in a room with rows of chairs where we waited until we were called for our audience with the royal couple. When we were ushered in, I sat on the floor with the other devotees and Prabhupada spoke with them. As I sat there, I suddenly had a clear perception that everything was Krishna's energy, not simply different objects as I was accustomed to seeing them. Everything was Krishna's energy and Krishna was controlling it all. Having had that realization, I felt an urge to speak, to share it. Being a junior, I did not say anything, but in the course of Srila Prabhupada's discussion with the king and queen, the question came up as to why or how we had joined the movement, and I was asked to reply. Glad to have the opportunity to speak in front of and in support of my spiritual master, I told the story of how I, the son of a prominent wealthy lawyer, had joined, and everyone was very pleased with the answer. Then Prabhupada gave a talk on the role of the Kshatriya class in Krishna consciousness. That was a beautiful talk. I'll read some of it. Your Highness, Her Highness, and ladies and gentlemen, this Krishna consciousness movement has a very intimate relationship with the Kshatriya family. Lord Krishna says Imam vivashvate yogam proktavan aham avyayam. The personality of Godhead, I'm adding the translation of the verse. The personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna said, I imparted this imperishable science of yoga to the sun god Vivashwan, and Vivashwan imparted it to Manu, the father of mankind, and Manu in turn imparted it to Ikshvaku. Gita 4:1. And then Srila Prabhupada went on and spoke very nicely about how important the Kshatriyas were in Krishna consciousness. And he concluded, therefore, the Krishna consciousness movement and the support of the royal family is a very old relationship. And at the present moment, people need this Krishna consciousness very badly. Without Krishna consciousness, the whole world is going to hell. And you can practically see how people are changing, how this movement is changing the character and mentality of the population. So I have come here. I wish that both of you will be kind enough to patronize this movement to the best of your capacity. From start to finish, the meeting at the palace went very well. And after Srila Prabhupada's brilliant appeal, we were hoping that the king would get in touch with us to offer us something, land or maybe even one of his palaces. But he never did. This next incident is very nice. On December 14th, Prabhupada accepted an invitation from a wealthy gentleman who is related to the royal family. He spoke with the man about the importance of Krishna consciousness and then showed him his books and asked him to become a life member. I already have these books in my own language, the man responded. I don't need any more. Prabhupada became stern. I have not come here to sell you some books, he corrected. I have come here begging at your doorstep. Taken aback, the man immediately joined. Oh yes, Swamiji, I will become your member. I will be glad to become your member. In the dining room for lunch, our host seated Prabhupada at the head of a long banquet table, and I took my place at his right. Then we all honored prasad. Having been trained to follow a strict brahmachari lifestyle, I was particularly reserved about eating sweets. And especially seated next to Prabhupada, I tried not to take too much of the more opulent preparations. I didn't want to indulge in sense gratification, and I certainly didn't want Prabhupada to think I was doing so. So even when the host's elderly father repeatedly tried to serve me a second rasagula, I refused. Prabhupada could see that the host's elderly father was disappointed, though. And finally he glanced at me and said, "You can take a sweet to make an old man happy." And so I did. Many gentlemen came to meet Srila Prabhupada, usually with their own ideas of spiritual life. He even complained They come to the Guru with their own opinions to see if the Guru will agree. If the Guru agrees, he is very good. But if the Guru disagrees, they think he is not good. One argument he had with some guests was especially instructive. And I love this discussion. I can read it again and again, just how brilliant Srila Prabhupada dealt with his guests. On the previous night, he had delivered a lecture at the Gita Samiti Hall, where he was appalled to find that there was no picture of Krishna. The next day, he raised the issue with his guests to point out that many people were not properly understanding and presenting the Bhagavad Gita and its speaker, Lord Krishna. He explained that his mission was to present the Gita properly, as it is, and to expose those who did not. Prabhupada. Bona fide spiritual master means one who carries out the order of higher authorities. We are carrying out the order of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu or Krishna. Krishna taught the Bhagavad Gita, and he stated, "Anyone who preaches the confidential message of the Bhagavad Gita is very dear to me." Guest. We believe in an incorporeal God, Nirakar. Prabhupada. Who says incorporeal? That means without a body. Who says? Guest. You'll find it all over India, that incorporeal form, Jyotirlinga. Prabhupada. That's all right. You are bringing something besides the Bhagavad Gita. Just try to understand. In this international society for Krishna consciousness, we are preaching the Bhagavad Gita. Jyotirlinga, these theories may be in other literatures, but we are particularly interested in preaching the Bhagavad Gita. Because the Bhagavad Gita is being preached wrongly all over the world with nonsense commentation, we want to rectify it. Therefore, our society is especially named Krishna conscious. Guest. What is wrongly preached about the Gita? Prabhupada. Just like yesterday, I went to that Gita Samiti. There is a lamp. Why a lamp instead of Krishna? Krishna is a lamp? Therefore, I say it is being wrongly preached. Why there is a lamp? Does Krishna say? Guest. Lamp has been with us for more than Prabhupada. That's all right. Krishna has also been there. Guest. They must evolve. Prabhupada. No. The first thing is that the Bhagavad Gita is spoken by Krishna. So why there is no picture of Krishna? That means you have not understood Krishna. Therefore, your so-called Gita society is not bona fide. Even in ordinary affairs, if there is some political meeting, you keep Gandhi's photo, Nehru's photo, because they are the political leaders. Gita Samiti is preaching the Bhagavad Gita, and there is not a single picture of Krishna. This is misguided. Now, Gita Bhavan, they have invited me because we are preaching the Bhagavad Gita. And that was Gita's Jayanti. The speaker of the Gita is not present. Therefore, I say there are so many places, even here, that are wrongly representing the Bhagavad Gita. So our position is to rectify that wrong propaganda. Guess 2. What is that wrong propaganda? Prabhupada. That is one instance. There are many. Just like in the 9th chapter, there is Manmana Bhava Madbhakto Madhyaji Mam Namaskuru. Lord Krishna says, engage your mind always in thinking of me, become my devotee, offer obeisances to me, and worship me. But Dr. Radhakrishnan says, it is not to the person Krishna. Where does he get this nonsense idea? Guest 1. No, Vivekananda has also said that. Prabhupada. Therefore, I say they are all nonsense. They are all nonsense who deviate from the original text of the Bhagavad Gita. The guests challenged Srila Prabhupada's statement that his presentation of the Bhagavad Gita was correct, whereas others were not. They said he should see and treat others with equal vision. Guest 5. If each and every person has an individual identity of soul above the body, unless you treat him as equal, Prabhupada. There are 3 gunas, and Bhagavad Gita analyzes these persons are in Sattva gun, these persons are in Raja gun, these persons are in Tamo gun. Guest 5. That is not the personality of the Atma. The Atma is everybody's soul. If you have the potency to rise and go higher and higher, you are not in the Atma stage. I'm not in the Atma stage. You are in the bodily stage. Guest 5. Both, body and soul together. Prabhupada challenged the guests. If they saw everything equally, why did they find fault with him? If you are in the Atma stage, he asserted, you have no argument with me. Pandita Samadarshina, that is stated in the Bhagavad Gita, 5:18. Vidya Vinay Sampane Brahmane Gavihastini Suni Chaiva Sopake Cha Pandita Samadarshina. The humble stage, by virtue of true knowledge, sees with equal vision a learned and gentle Brahman, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog-eater. Guest 3. That is the correct position. Prabhupada, that is the correct position. But if you find that Swamiji is not on the standard, that means you are not in the position, Samadarshina. Guest 3. But that means if a person commits a murder, a sinner, Prabhupada, yes, that is very high stage, Samadarshina. Samadarshina means there is no distinction between what is sin and what is virtue. As soon as you see this is virtue and this is sin, it is not Samadarshina. Here it is said clearly, Vidya Vinay Sampane Brahmane. A Brahman is learned and Vinaya, very humble. These are the signs of goodness. Vidya Vinay Sampane Brahmane Gavihastini Shuni. Shuni means dog. He sees a dog and a learned Brahman the same. Now, the dog is supposed to be sinful, and this learned Brahman is supposed to be virtuous. Therefore, in his vision, the virtuous and the sinful are the same. That is Samadarshi. Guest 1. I think they have made many mistakes in writing the shlokas. Prabhupada, that's all right. Now you are finding faults in Vyas. So who can talk with you? Please excuse me. Please go out. You are finding faults with Vyas. Guest 4. We only want you to be understood here. Prabhupada shouting. I am not Samadarshi. I don't say I am Samadarshi. You say Samadarshi. Guest 2. You should be Samadarshi. Prabhupada. But I'm not on that stage. I say because you do not surrender to Krishna, you are sinful. That is my darshan. Guest 5. You should also be seen as Samadarshi. Darshina. Prabhupada. No. Why shall I? I am not in that position. I am simply repeating the words of Krishna. That is my point. I may be Samadarshi, I may not be Samadarshi. My position is simply to repeat. That's all. Finally, a sixth guest raised one last question. But every successive teacher has added some interpretation of the knowledge, no? Guest 4. You are the successor of somebody? Prabhupada, yes, yes. Guest 5. Then what is your contribution? That is what we are asking. What is Samadarshi? Have you become Samadarshi? Guest 6. You are teaching others to be Samadarshi. Prabhupada. My Samadarshi is, why should only Hindus know Krishna? The whole world should know Krishna. But if you, the Hindus, refer to know, what can I do? By Srila Prabhupada's practical work, he had made Krishna consciousness available to all persons all over the world. That was his equal vision, and that was his contribution to his predecessors and to us. He was presenting Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the Bhagavad Gita as it is. And people all over the world were accepting and becoming Krishna's devotees. The guests were impressed. And if they wanted, they could also follow and benefit. Srila Prabhupada gave us class every morning before sunrise, and on the 15th of December he spoke on the 6th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam about Ajamil and the holy name, which he related to the experience of the Gita Jayanti Mahotsav. We listened with rapt attention, appreciating a story that we had never heard and that was so meaningful and relevant. Srila Prabhupada said, we are talking of Ajamil, a Brahmin residing in Kanyakubja, presently known as Kanpur. There are so many things to know, but these things are not being discussed here. It is very cheap to do whatever you like. You simply meditate and you become God. So much cheating is going on all over the world. The so-called yogis say, you meditate, and as soon as you are realized, you become God. The Bhagavad Gita is being interpreted in so many different ways. And these so-called explanations are being accepted by the innocent public as authoritative knowledge. Someone is explaining that Kurukshetra means the body, and the Panch Pandavas mean the senses. But this is not explaining. How can you explain the Bhagavad Gita as it is when you do not understand it? Such an attempt is nonsense. In his next talk, Prabhupada narrated more of Ajamil's life and commented, at that time, there was only one Ajamil. But you will find many Ajamils like that at the present moment, because it is the age of Kali. Then he came to Ajamil's critical moment. He was just on the point of death, so naturally he had affection for his son. So he was calling, Narayan, Narayan, please come here, please come here. That is natural. I know my father. When he was dying, I was not at home. So he was living for one day to see me. He was always inquiring whether Abai had come back, like that. So father's paternal affection is like that. And similarly, Ajamil was calling Narayan, Narayan. Prabhupada explained that according to the Bhagavad Gita, one's mentality at the time of death determines one's next birth. If a person remembers Narayan or Krishna at that moment, he becomes liberated. Because devotees are Krishna conscious, they enter the spiritual world. And because the materialists are absorbed in sense gratification and mental speculation, they have to take birth in the material world. He gave an example. One gentleman in Calcutta was a fairly big businessman. He was dealing in shares, stocks. So at the time of death, he was crying, Kamarhati, Kamarhati. So the result might be that he might have taken his birth as a rat in the Kamarhati mill. It is possible. At the time of death, whatever you think, that will carry you to your next type of body. He continued, when Ajamil was dying, he saw that there were 3 ferocious persons, very fearsome persons with ropes in their hands. Sometimes a dying man cries because he sees somebody has come to take him to Yamaraj. He sees and he is very fearful. So Ajamil also became fearful. The assistants of Yamaraj have hair very curled, and the hairs on their bodies are standing. Now at the time of Ajamil's death, the assistants of Yamaraj came to take him. Then he paused and said, we shall discuss sometime again. And he ended his lecture. On his last morning in Indore, Prabhupada continued Ajamil's story, explaining that because Ajamil had uttered the holy name, he was immediately saved, even though he had been so sinful. Quote, so Ajamil, at the time of his death, just remembered his youngest son, whose name was Narayan. The very name Narayan has got the full potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayan. That is the secret of this Nam Sankirtan movement. By chanting the holy name of Narayan, you immediately contact with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Nama, the Lord's name, is not material, it is spiritual. Krishna and Krishna's name, there is no difference. In a very appealing voice, Ajamil began to ask his son, please come here, I am dying. He was very afraid of the Yamadutas. Krishna sent the Vishnu Dutas to give Ajamil shelter. The Vishnu Dutas looked just like Lord Narayan with 4 hands. With a grave voice, they said to the Yamadutas, what are you doing? Stop. You cannot take this man to Yamaraj. Thus, Prabhupada ended his lecture and his stay in Indore. Baba Bal Mukund, one of the sadhus who attended the Gita Jayanti, summarized Prabhupada's contribution. Quote, I have seen many sadhus and great saints in this Gita Bhavan. I saw Srila Prabhupada also in the same place. I was very much impressed by Srila Prabhupada and his preaching. It was because Prabhupada had revealed the reality about bhakti. Because he was a pure bhakta, He could change the people of the West and give them another dress. He could give them another diet, and he could entirely change their culture and give them true bhakti. And this was the greatest thing Prabhupada has done. Let the world say as it likes, but he has done a marvelous thing regarding Lord Krishna's bhakti. What Swami Vivekananda, Swami Ramatirtha, and others could not do, Srila Prabhupada has done. It is a marvelous thing. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So thank you for joining us and listening so attentively. We have a few more minutes, about 13 minutes, according to the schedule. And so if any of you have any questions or comments, you can raise your hand and speak. Yes? Hello.
Maharaj, while giving your talk, you mentioned about that argument you liked most. So would you like to know which that argument you mentioned?
Oh, I read it. How they said that you're not to the standard, you should be Samadarshi, that whole discussion. Yeah. And how they said, you should make some contribution beyond the previous acharyas, and how Prabhupada demonstrated that he was Samadarshi because he made Krishna consciousness available to everyone. And that was also his contribution beyond the previous acharyas, because no one else had done that before.
Hare Krishna. Maharaj was sharing on these beautiful pastimes of Srila Prabhupada. So we used to hear Prabhupada going to the place, homes of the people and have prasadam and all with a team. So when we were just doing the same thing in our lives, we just wanted to know how to follow it, because we are supposed to take prasadam made by the devotees who are chanting good number of rounds and all like that. Of course, these families were very pious and devoted, but they were not kind of a typical ISKCON devotees or like that. So if this kind of scenario come in front of us, then we have to go to their homes, and then when we go, they surely feel that we should take something in their homes and all. So in this scenario, and also there was one doubt that they may not be offering the way we offer, or they may be offering to demigods or whatever. So how that was all accepted like that?
Yes, we asked Srila Prabhupada about accepting food at people's homes. And he said if they're following the four regulative principles, and if they offer the food to Krishna, then we can take it as prasad and we can accept it. Does that answer your question?
Miss, it is offered to Krishna that day, or it is offered to Krishna every day? Matlab, if that
day. If they offer it to Krishna, when you visit their home, then you can accept it as prasad.
So one of the devotees have to go and offer it to Krishna, or they themselves can offer it to Krishna? Matlab, I just wanted to know the details about that.
It could be either way. If it's not offered when the devotees arrive, it's nice if the devotees offer it, and then the host can also learn how to make the offering. That would be nice if the devotees offer it. But if they've already offered it to Krishna in their own way, then we still take it as prasad.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Hare Krishna Maharaj. Yes. Yeah, Maharaj, last week you were speaking about Prahlad Maharaj, how he saw everyone as equal. I had a question regarding that Prahlad Maharaj is seeing enemies also as friends. And in Gita, Krishna is telling that telling Arjuna to kill his even relatives and friends. So I found...
Sorry? What are you saying Krishna says? Yes, Krishna tells Arjuna to kill his relatives and friends. Yes.
Yeah. So, like Prahlad Maharaj is seeing his enemies as friends, and he's like telling, like we discussed last week regarding that. Isn't it contradictory to what Krishna is telling to Arjuna that you should, even if your relative who is an enemy, you should kill him?
Well, Prahlad situation was different. Arjuna was playing the part of a kshatriya, and Krishna was telling him to fight and kill, even those who were his relatives. But Prahlad's situation was different. He was seen as a Mahabhagavat. He was seeing everyone in the best light, and he was taking everything as Krishna's mercy. And he was always remembering Krishna. So there are 9 processes of devotional service, Nava Vidhi Bhakti, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam. And there are examples of devotees who attained perfection by one of those processes, like Maharaj Parikshit achieved perfection by Shravanam, by hearing. Sukadev Goswami attained perfection by Kirtanam, by speaking. And Prahlad Maharaj attained perfection by Smaranam, by always remembering Krishna. Does that answer your question?
So Prahlad Maharaj can we interpret that Prahlad Maharaj was on a higher stage and Arjuna was not on that stage? So,
well, it depends on how you look at it. In terms of that vision, Prahlad was on a higher stage, but Arjuna was in a relationship with Krishna in Sakyaras, whereas Prahlad Maharaj was in Dasyaras. So in that sense, we could say Arjuna was on a higher level. Yeah. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Maharaj, Hare Krishna Maharaj, I'm sorry, I was not. So I have 2 questions. Yesterday I was talking to one devotee and the question was like, after attending your lecture, you said that we have to surrender to the follower of Krishna and we also have to surrender to Krishna without asking any why or without asking any doubts. So does this mean that even if we have doubts in our hearts, we have to just sideline those doubts and completely chant the name of Krishna while the doubts are still there in our hearts? Or second thing, do we have to make our heart void of doubts, and won't that be the supreme surrender? as compared to the first one?
Well, doubt, in the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, doubt is counted as one of the elements of intelligence. So doubt is not bad in and of itself. And if you have doubts, it's good to bring them up so that your doubts can be cleared. Srila Prabhupada always asked for questions, so if people had doubts, he could clear them. So we shouldn't repress our doubts or suppress our doubts, but we should bring them out so that they can be removed through superior knowledge.
So it means that our surrender gets stronger with every clearance of our doubts. Like it's like a ladder. Like at every stage we get the doubt, and then that doubt is clear, and we are more and more surrendered to the Supreme Being.
Yes.
So it's normal, right? Having the doubts. One cannot be at its peak of surrender to the Lord at very initial stages of its life. So is it normal to have so many doubts? And if it is it normal that if I can't surrender to the Supreme Being at very initial stages?
Well, we can't say it's wrong to have doubts. You have doubts, so you should bring them up. But it would be nice if you got free of doubts.
But how to get so, like free of doubts? Just by asking and querying?
Yeah, you bring up your doubts, and one by one, as your doubts are cleared, then you can surrender with more conviction.
I have one more follow-up question to that. Shall I ask, please? So afterwards, I was also asking that, see, we say that we have to keep Krishna at the center, with whatever we do. So it's bhakti, so yes, Krishna is at the center. That I understood. But this friend of mine, he also said that he's also here. He's also a follower. He stays with me. So he also said that even if it's your career and even if it's your academy, still we have to keep Krishna at the center. So I didn't got that feeling, like how can I learn history and geography and pretend that I'm doing it for Krishna? Well, Krishna has got nothing to do with history and geography and career growth.
I mean, it depends on you if Krishna has something to do with it or not. I mean, ideally, you should do everything for Krishna. So even your career, you do it for Krishna. I mean, depending on what your career is, you can bring Krishna into your career as such. And if not, then the money that you earn from your career, you can use to serve Krishna. And same with your academic studies. Depending on what your field is, Krishna might be part of it or not. But even otherwise, if people know you're a devotee and if you do well in your studies, it reflects favorably on Krishna consciousness. People think, oh, he's a devotee, he's doing well in his studies, Krishna consciousness is good. And if you do poorly in your studies and people know you're a devotee, they'll think, oh, this Krishna consciousness, he's a devotee and he doesn't do well in his studies. That doesn't look good for Krishna consciousness. So everything can be related to Krishna consciousness and should be related to Krishna consciousness.
Maharaj, I means from the day I get to acquainted with Prabhupada and I learn about him that at the age of 70 he went in America and preached there. So I am always curious to know that what the young people of America used to think about him, or used to means look at him, how means what they used to think about Prabhupada when he used to preach there, or talk
What were
with
the young people of America?
used to think about Prabhupada, that who is this Indian man or a guru.
Oh, well, I mean, different young people may have seen Srila Prabhupada differently, but one thing Srila Prabhupada said about his mission is that he's turning the hippies into happies. Yeah, in one interview, the interviewer asked Srila Prabhupada, what is a hippie? And Srila Prabhupada said, you something wonderful. You should know better than me. So, yeah, he attracted all sorts of people, through kirtan, through philosophy, through prasadam, through his care and affection and love.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Yes, Maharaj. Thank you for your wonderful lecture. My question is regarding book distribution. Since you mentioned that once you were at some family and Prabhupada asked you that you can accept that sweet according to time, place and circumstances, Prabhupada asked you to accept it so that it makes them happy. So coming back to the book distribution, sometimes personally I feel some people, they're stepping back, taking the books. They don't want to take because it has some cost, they have to pay. And I feel like to give it free, I will pay rather if they are interested. I want to know what Prabhupada's view on giving the books for free. If now we have that sponsorship, we take the cost of the book, now we give those books as a free copy and we don't charge that person. So what was Prabhupada's view on giving books for free?
Well, at first, Srila Prabhupada was very clear that the people who get the book should pay for the book, which would indicate that they value the book. But then later, Srila Prabhupada also clarified that as long as someone pays for the book, it's all right. So even if the person who receives the book doesn't pay for it, but if someone else pays for it, that's also all right. So sponsorship is good, but it's also good if they give something. As Vaisheshika Prabhu says, when they give something, it's sort of like a reciprocation for the knowledge that they will get from the book. So it's beneficial for them if they give something. But in principle, as long as someone pays for the book, it's all right. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj. As you mentioned that you went to with Prabhupada at Holkar's, that king's home, and you were expecting that king will donate something. So similarly, while do book distribution or preaching works also, when we go to the big shots, the person which rich people, so we also go with that mentality that he will donate something, he will sponsor. So while like interacting with him, whenever he says, even if he speaks some nonsense philosophy, so instead of presenting it nicely or what Prabhupada says, like I sometimes try to not to speak to hurt his false ego. So in what way we can deal with them so that he can give donation also at the same time maintaining good relation?
Yeah. Well, sometimes it happens we meet people who speak nonsense, and depending on the situation, we may not want to contradict them. I was in a situation once in which a couple, the daughter, I think the wife's mother from India was visiting, and she was speaking nonsense. But, she was the mother, and, the children respected her, and she was pious. I mean, in her own way, she was pious. But she was speaking some impersonal nonsense. So I thought if I get into an argument with her, it'll just spoil the mood. So I thought she should get Srila Prabhupada's books. And, I don't have to call her a fool and rascal. Srila Prabhupada's books will call her a fool and rascal. So, yeah, sometimes we may not contradict them, but we should give them Srila Prabhupada's books so they get the right philosophy.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna. So it's our extremely great fortune that we had the association of His Holiness Giriraj Swami Maharaj for last 10 days. We cannot estimate the good fortune we had because it's after many years that Maharaj is visiting India, especially the lockdown time was a great separation. And Maharaj has been one of the closest associates of Srila Prabhupada, who has very closely observed Srila Prabhupada, noted things in the diary, and has been guided at every step. So as we saw in this book, and yesterday we heard, and this book will come up very soon, we are praying for it. So Maharaj has been personally trained by Srila Prabhupada in practically all the aspects of ISKCON related services. There are a lot of letters which Srila Prabhupada wrote to Maharaj, guiding him at all regards. And wherever Srila Prabhupada was during his travel, the Juhu project always grabbed his attention. We can find, if we read his letters especially, he took those letters very urgent and responded to them very fast, giving very detailed guidance. The letters are very long also. And we also have special gratitude for Maharaj because Maharaj has a big role which he has played for the Pune project. The Pune Yatra was started in way back 1976. Srila Prabhupada visited Pune. But after that, Maharaj continued to come and send devotees. And the camp temple which we had, that has personally been kind of led by Maharaj. There was an inauguration ceremony which happened in the Nehru Auditorium where Maharaj invited many prominent personalities of Pune. So we missed that part, and when Maharaj comes visit us next time, we would like to have an exclusive class on Maharaj recalling the Pune memories also. That will be. So Maharaj has been one of the foundation pillars for Pune, and whatever we see today, that has been, the seed has been sown way back in 1976 by Srila Prabhupada and watered by Maharaj later. And then this project has been flourishing. So we'd like to very deeply appreciate Maharaj and express our gratitude by loudly chanting 3 times. And we can continue to receive association of Maharaj through his wonderful books which he has written. They're available at the stall here. Watering the Seed, Many Moons, and I Will Build Your Temple, the Juhu story. These are, wonderful books. And there's so many details in that we will practically feel like we have got transferred to that era when it's happening. And many things which we just don't know about the Juhu temple. So many details are there, so many pictures are there. So please have a copy, and after this announcement, Maharaj will personally sign each of the books. But we request the devotees to please come in queue. Prabhuji can come from this side, Mataji is from this side. And just few more announcements. Tomorrow we have the disappearance day of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada. So we'll be fasting till noon on this occasion. And the morning Srimad Bhagavatam class on this occasion will be given by His Grace, Gauranga Prabhu. So please come and participate in the festival till noon and have feast after the celebrations, and then you can continue your thing. And we will also be blessed by the Divine Association of His Holiness Vedavyas Priya Maharaj on the coming weekend. On 17th of December, Saturday morning, Srimad Bhagavatam class will be given by His Holiness Vedavyas Priya Maharaj. And then the mercy continues to flow further. On 21st December, we will have the Divine Association of His Holiness Chandramauli Swami Maharaj. And then further, His Holiness Lokanath Swami Maharaj, His Holiness Ram Govind Swami Maharaj will be there. And we are hosting bureau meetings at our temple on 28, 29 and 30th of December. So there will be a whole galaxy of wonderful personality descending in Pune to bless all of us. So please keep these 3 days free for the Shravana Utsav and also rendering various services which will come on the occasion. And also, as we know, as our year ends with the wonderful Srimad Bhagavatam Katha by His Holiness Lokanath Swami Maharaj. So this year, this Katha, Srimad Bhagavatam Katha, is happening from 25th December till 31st December, as it happens every year. But the venue is different. This time it is happening not in the Ganesh Kala Krida camp, but it is happening at Bhosle Gardens at Hadapsar. इस बार जो श्रीमद् भागवतम कथा जो परम पूज्य लोकनाथ स्वामी महाराज हर वर्ष आयोजित करते हैं वर्ष के अंत में, वो गणेश कला क्रीड़ा क्षेत्र में नहीं होगी, वो भोसले गार्डन जो हड़पसर पर स्थित है वहाँ पर होगी. और हर दिन 6 से 9 बजे तक कीर्तन, प्रवचन, प्रसादम इत्यादि सबका आयोजन रहेगा. तो आप लोग आपका साल का जो एंडिंग है, अंत है, वो महाराज की कथा के साथ कीजिए. हर दिन आप पार्टिसिपेट कर सकते हैं. सो 25th to 31st December द कथा विल बी देयर. And today afternoon, 11:30, Bhagavad Gita class in Marathi will be given by His Grace Shyam Bhajan Prabhu. And now, those devotees who want to get the book signed, they can please come in queue to get the book signed. Hare Krishna. His Holiness Giriraj Swami Maharaj ki. Srila Prabhupada ki.